Hello, my name is Farah Al-Shami. I'm a senior fellow at the Arab Reform Initiative, and I'm leading the initiative's social protection program. The general population is not very familiar with the concept of social protection. The concept of social protection is mostly known amongst the elitist circles, the circles of experts, of academics, of researchers, of civil society organization representatives. However, we need to understand that the general population, that all activists, that all the people on the streets that we see during social movements, during protests and manifestations and sit-ins that are demand-driven, all these people actually speak about social protection, but without mentioning social protection verbatim. Because in their demands, as they are asking for socioeconomic rights, as they are asking for access to health, access to education, for minimum income security, as they're asking for the right to decent life standards, to the food, to water, to wash, which is water, sanitation and hygiene services. As they're asking for all of these rights, they are actually speaking about social protection, but they do not know that all of these demands that they're voicing out actually fall within the framework of the concept that is called social protection. However, it is of primary importance to raise these people's awareness about the concept of social protection and what it means and what it actually is for one key reason. Social protection is a human right. It's also a fundamental part of the social contracts that tie citizens but also residents to the state. Therefore, it is the responsibility of the state to provide social security through social protection systems that are universal, effective, sustainable, and well integrated to its population, whether those are citizens or those are residents. Social protection or social security is basically, it's all about accessing food, accessing water, accessing health, sanitation services, accessing shelter, clothes, and all the basic or essential goods and services that are necessary to provide decent life standards to all. The Arab Reform Initiative Social Protection Program started off first as a project. It was a consortium of 4 national think tanks and 3 independent media outlets from 4 different countries in the Arab region that came together as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The goal of the project was initially to map, document, and analyze the state, non-state, and trans-state responses to the COVID-19 pandemic, and to analyze the socioeconomic impacts of these responses on the different social vulnerable groups, the vulnerable and the marginalized groups across the Arab region. As we started to produce knowledge and to analyze our research findings and key takeaways, we found out that a key priority policy area, as we are talking about COVID-19 in the Arab region and beyond, and as we're thinking beyond the pandemic and started to think about the post-COVID-19 strategies for recovery, we thought that a key priority policy area is social protection. And this is when we have decided to narrow our focus down, to focus on social protection systems in the Arab region per se, and to start examining how would it be possible to build universal social protection systems in the Arab region that are strong, that are effective, that are universal, sustainable, integrated, and viable, so that they leave no one behind, so that nobody is excluded. As our program is trying to achieve its aim in promoting universal social protection policies and programming, we will be addressing this topic while following a multidisciplinary approach and while tapping into 4 different dimensions. The first dimension is basically the technical dimension, and here we will be trying to understand what are the priorities when it comes to policy reforms, to programmatic reforms, institutional, legal, legislative reforms that are needed for these social protection systems to become possible. The second dimension is basically to look at the financing question. What are the fiscal reforms? What are the financing mechanisms that are needed to fund the universal social protection systems that we are aiming for? And these have definitely to be in line with the principles of development effectiveness and with the good practices when it comes to financing for development. development. As for the third pillar, it is related to the political economy. It is related to the political economic factors behind social protection. What is the political economy of social protection? What are the political red lines in the Arab region that are preventing universal social protection schemes from happening? The Arab region is full of political economic problems, of governance problems such as clientelism, sectarianism, confessionalism, and consociationalism, among others. And all of these problems are preventing the social protection policies and programming that are equitable and that give everybody, with no exception, access to basic goods and services and to their essential needs, irrespective of their identities, irrespective of their religions, of their ethnicity, of their sexual identity or their gender. As for the fourth and last dimension, we will try to understand the role of social movements, of social activism, when it comes to promoting social protection systems that are better and that are more effective. And here we'll try to work more closely with the activists and with the representatives of vulnerable groups and with the vulnerable groups themselves, because in the Arab region we are dealing with closed policy spaces, we are dealing with closed policy spheres whereby the decision makers, the policy makers do not listen to the people and do not listen to the civil society organizations that are trying to voice out or to advocate the people's needs and the people's demands for more, for their socioeconomic rights and for better livelihoods and for better and more decent life standards. Therefore, as one of our tools or one of our methods to overcome this challenge of dealing with closed policy spaces in the Arab region, we will be trying to work more closely with the social movements, with the young scholars and activists, with the representatives of vulnerable groups, with the vulnerable groups themselves, in order first to understand what they actually need, so that the policy recommendations that we are trying to retrieve from our research and that ensue from our research efforts are more legitimate and are more representative of their real, of their reality of those people and of their real struggles and their real demands, of the reality of those people and of their real struggles and their real demands. We would also like to work with these people, with the social movements and with the social activists, in order to equip them with the needed knowledge, with the needed policy recommendations, and with the needed tools of activism that are essential for their activism to be more effective and to be more representative of the general population's demands and the general population's view for their own lives and for their own livelihoods. Our second method to overcome the challenge of dealing with closed policy spaces in the Arab region is to create a community of practice and knowledge on the topic. We have realized that there is actually an ecosystem already working on the topic. There is an ecosystem of multiple stakeholders, of experts, of practitioners, of activists, of civil society organizations representatives, of academics, of international organizations, and many more. And this ecosystem is somehow a heavy space. However, the community that exists is not coordinated. It does not have a coordinated vision. And we have realized that it needs this effort to coordinate it and to provide it with a coordinated vision and with a space for exchange and with a continuous space for convening, for dialogue. And this is the community that we are trying to create, a community where everybody can fit. It's a community of practice and an epistemic community where both the experts and the activists can fit, where the academics and the CSOs can fit. And as part of creating this community of practice, we have initiated the Arab Region Hub for Social Protection. The Arab Region Hub for Social Protection is an online platform. It's a virtual platform, and it is meant to be a go-to space on social protection in the Arab region, whereby we share the knowledge that we all produce, we share the policy recommendations, and we come together to convene continuously, whether virtually or physically, and to engage in more purposeful dialogues and in more policy-oriented dialogues that bridge this gap between experts, between scientific research, practitioners' research, and policy-oriented research. Because this gap exists and it is big, and for this to be bridged, we need to bring together the experts, the practitioners, and sometimes the vulnerable groups together alongside the policymakers, of course. This is what the Arab Region Hub is trying to do. And as a first step, we have launched a declaration that tries to unify our discourses as members of this community of practice and knowledge and as members of the Arab Region Hub for Social Protection. The declaration is helping us converge on one narrative when it comes to social protection or to the social protection systems that we envision and that we aim for. It tries to also to turn the duplication of efforts that exists in this ecosystem working on the topic into more partnership, collaboration, cooperation, and synergies that would make a bigger impact and that would make those concerted efforts be more stronger and more able of making the policy change that we yearn for, the social change, the democratic, political, and economic change that we yearn for around the topic of social protection in the Arab region. Join us and follow our social protection programs platform as well as the platforms of the Arab Region Hub for Social Protection to receive our research outputs, to receive the policy recommendations ensuing from these outputs, to follow and join our advocacy efforts that we pursue to try to advance these policy recommendations and put them into practice. This is how we can all come together to build better social protection systems in the Arab region.